Welcome to the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting for May 9th, 2023. On this committee, Councillor O'Toole, Councillor Bosch, Mayor Clayton, and myself, Grant Burke. We'll just no delegation, so straight to reports. Service area update with Chief McEachran.
Thank you, Chair Berg. For our update today, I'll start with the City Clerk's office. And just a reminder, as we're into the provincial election period, it's come to our attention that we do need to do a bit of communication around City Bylaw C1078 of public lands. This bylaw in particular addresses election signs, and it is the season of election signs right now up until May 29th. There are, as part of this bylaw, there is an appendix that identifies which areas that election signs are allowed to be located in. We had intended before this to do some communication out to the campaigns on just reminding them of this bylaw. Unfortunately, with the fire situation, our communications have been focused elsewhere, but we will get that communication out through different means to those campaigns. On corporate communications, we have some great news with the new city events calendar. It's gone better than expected, with lots of events now available for the community to see. And we're going to begin planning the promotion of the calendar more widespread. Communications staff have also been extremely busy working alongside their peers at the county to provide the support and assistance with GPREP and its response to the present fire. So we have had our communications team working around the clock throughout the weekend, and will continue throughout this week as well. On intergovernmental affairs, the team actually attended last week a round dance at Horse Lake First Nation. It was very beneficial. And also met with the Chamber of Commerce to provide information on franchise fees with our Chief Financial Officer. Intergovernmental affairs are also actively monitoring electoral campaigns as we go through the election period, as I mentioned, till May 29th. Human resources, police transition work continues to take up quite a few resources in HR. And on a good news front, we've just developed what we're calling a Municipal Leadership Academy, which we will be introducing shortly to roll out to staff within the city in September. This will be for professional development of up-and-coming leaders. Corporate marketing, the marketing team is developing a candidate theme, including visual identity, float, giveaways, photo station, potential pop-up shop. It's a very interesting concept they've come up with, and I look forward to see the additional work they're going to do with that. Work continues on the GPPS transition marketing campaign, really focused on education. Phase 2 of that is going to be rolled out on May 15th. And our brand strategy draft will be presented. I expect to see a presentation from them within the next week. So that is on track as well. And with that, I can take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Chief McEachran. Committee, any questions? No, I do have one. Around the election signs that are misplaced, how are we handling that? Is that just with a simple phone call to the campaign, or are bylaw moving those signs?
Through the chair, yes, I believe, I would have to confirm for sure, but individuals can call into our Citizen Engagement Center if they have concerns, and there will be communication with the campaign, but it could include enforcement as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Toole.
Are you going to bring up the maintenance of the signs? Because I know some of the signs that are out there now with the wind have kind of wrecked them, and I was wondering if the party responsible for those signs can do maintenance on them so they don't look trashed.
Through the chair, I would have to confirm. I don't believe that our bylaw covers the maintenance of the signs. It's more to do with the location of the signs, but I can confirm that.
I know in the past some of the signs got wrecked. Usually it's in October elections, and the wires get broke off, and it's been brought up by many people that have pets that the wires are there and animals get caught up in them or can cause eye injuries and stuff like that. So just bringing it to the springtime and maybe we can look at that. Thank you.
All right. So thank you. Moving on to 3.2, the 2023 Council Advocacy Priorities. Chief McEachran.
Thank you, Chair Berg. And with this, I will turn it over to Director Tarrant, who is with us today to present on the advocacy priorities.
Thank you, and through the chair. So before you have the 2023 advocacy priorities. These are items that Council has previously identified as priorities to advocate for on behalf of the city, and based on conversations Council has had with residents as well as businesses in the area. So you'll see there is largely unchanged from last year. One that was an emerging one that came up this past year was rail access. And then you'll also see there's a couple other ones that are more not priorities, but are listed as advocacy items. One emergent one that Council did see at the previous committee was regarding EMS. And if there is a wish to add that to either the priority list or to just the other advocacy items, that's certainly something that Council or committee may entertain here today. And with that, I will identify there is one typo in there. It's not Kynes Court, it's King's Court. And with that, that's the 2023 advocacy priorities.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tarrant. Mayor Clayton.
Berg, just a question, Mr. Tarrant. Council also has identified daycare shortages as a priority. And so how many significant items do you want to see in this list, and what's the determinant if they're significant to make this list?
Yeah. Through the chair, ultimately, if we have a smaller number of advocacy priorities, we can direct our efforts towards them, and by establishing these, committee will be able to give give administration the direction and where do we want our time and efforts spent. So for the top 5 or 6 advocacy priorities, that's where we put our time and effort into developing communications plans and developing advocacy strategies for and advancing, whereas the other items are more ad hoc and would result in more letter writing campaigns rather than full coordinated efforts towards advocacy. So up to Council, my recommendation would be to keep the list within that 5, 6, maybe 7 priorities. But certainly it's committee and Council's will if they want to expand that.
So if I may just have a follow-up. Possibly, excuse me, the wording could be changed on the rail. It's not just rail car access, so it could just be improve rail service as well. I think that the daycare shortages are a crisis, and I think it needs to be elevated to an advocacy priority. It impacts our economic development, it impacts our growth, it impacts many things. You can't attract and retain great healthcare professionals when they can't find daycare. I know there's nurses that want to go back to work that can't find daycare. Daycare is more than just a letter writing campaign, in my opinion. So I would like to see daycare added. Thanks.
Councillor Bressy.
Great, thank you. Concern I've got is I need to respectfully disagree with the recommendation to remove LGFF from these. As somebody directly involved in the negotiations, I can't emphasize how important it is for mid-sized cities in particular to be very involved with the new Minister of Municipal Affairs, specifically saying that population needs to be a very substantial part of the allocation funding. We've got the people of the province that fuel the economy. We don't necessarily have the tangible capital assets to go along with that, because we're desperately trying to build them as the people show up in the country, and we don't get the tax base that goes along with that. And for me, I think this is a weighting factor that could swing millions in our revenue every year, and it could be millions if the weighting's not appropriate there. And so I'd encourage us to keep LGFF on our advocacy priorities for now.
All right. Anyone from the committee around the table? Councillor Blackmore.
I'm not on this committee, so I will keep it short. But I feel that if we want to add things to the top of the list, then we would probably need to take something out, and I would support taking out Highway 40X, as I feel that we've made really good headway there, and we are supporting the county in their advocacy of this, so I don't believe it needs to be a top priority for this council.
Mayor Clayton.
I agree. That was going to be one of my thoughts. Sometimes we like to have advocacy priorities that fit into certain buckets of, and transportation is always one of them. That doesn't leave us with a transportation advocacy priority. However, with the design work and the land acquisition being funded, there will be significant work that is started. I think that this is something that we continue to be a regional partner to support the county in advocacy, but I don't think, in my opinion, it needs to be a listed priority for us going forward.
All right. Councillor Palat.
Thanks. Chair Berg, I'll be quick as well. I'm not on this committee. I agree with the comments being made. I agree that the daycare should be added. And I guess for me, I'm always going to bang the table for housing. I'm really concerned about what housing looks like in our community in 6 months to a year, and would love to see that as an advocacy priority. I think we should be working as hard as we can with the province to be getting more funding. For me, if we could add another one on there, housing would be something that would be important to me.
Yeah, of course. Mayor Clayton.
What do you think is an appropriate messaging? Is it advocating for provincial and federal funding to support growth in housing? Like, what do you see as appropriate?
I think it's funding. I mean, it just comes down to funding. I think if we had a conversation earlier in camera about a project we're trying to get off the ground. I think, when the city is talking about incentivizing so much a key, offering land, those are things that help the proponents or developers get a project off the ground. It would be nice if the province would help step up. In my opinion, it's more of a provincial thing right now to step up and say, hey, we're going to allocate some money to the city of Grande Prairie under parameters that it's going towards building social housing or affordable housing. So I think it's just an advocacy strategy and maybe collecting the data as elected officials. So when we're meeting with ministers, we actually realize how big the problem is for our community.
I think that's fair, and if appropriate, let's keep the federal government in there. I know that the federal government housing priorities end up going to the larger cities, and there needs to be funding streams available to mid-sized cities in regards to housing projects. So it would be provincial and federal funding for housing needs in our community, I would think. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I'll take care of business if no one has anything else to say.
Sure. I'm just looking at the list. Well, does your motion remove Highway 40X?
I would, yes, the amended list.
All right.
And add the housing funding.
Which I believe just landed.
Yes.
And daycare just landed on there too. So go ahead, Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I move that committee recommend council approve the 2023 council advocacy priority lists of electricity distribution costs, attraction and retention of healthcare professionals, provincial support for industrial attraction grant programs, improved rail service, daycare shortages, and provincial and federal funding for housing needs.
And that motion is in order, so I call the question.
You didn't have it in your head?
All right. I don't see any. Thank you, Mr. Tarrant. No correspondence, no other business. Moving straight to outstanding items list. Once again, to Chief McEachran.
Thank you, Chair Berg. For our outstanding items list, all 4 items are currently on track. There is no additions or anything additional to be brought to attention.
Okay, thank you. Any questions around that? No. Councillor O'Toole with some business.
Yes, thank you very much. I move the committee receive the May 9th, 2023 outstanding items list as presented for information.
Thank you. I'll call the question. Thank you. And with that, I call the Strategy and Communication Services Committee adjourned.